The last hour Grace Holloway stood at the nurse's station on the fourth floor of Metropolitan General Hospital, her fingers trembling as she signed off on the final patient chart. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. She had been on her feet for 16 straight hours, covering for 2 nurses who called in sick. Her lower back screamed in protest with every movement, and her vision blurred at the edges from exhaustion. "Grace, you look terrible," Rachel Kim said, appearing beside her with a concerned expression. Rachel had just started her night shift and looked fresh compared to Grace's disheveled appearance. "When was the last time you ate something?" Grace tried to remember, but couldn't. "Breakfast, I think? Maybe lunch. I don't know anymore." "That was yesterday's breakfast," Rachel corrected, checking her watch. "You need to go home right now. I'll handle the handover." Grace wanted to argue, but her body had other ideas. She nodded weakly and grabbed her bag from the locker room. The walk to the elevator felt like climbing a mountain. Each step required conscious effort, and she could feel her heart beating irregularly in her chest. She knew the signs of extreme fatigue, had seen them in patients countless times, but somehow never thought it would happen to her. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, empty. Thank goodness. Grace stepped inside and leaned against the cold metal wall, letting it support her weight. She pressed the button for the ground floor and closed her eyes. Just for a moment, the elevator lurched upward instead of down. Someone must have called it from a higher floor. Grace groaned softly, but kept her eyes closed. She could rest for 30 more seconds. The unexpected encounter, the doors opened on the executive floor. It's the 9th level where hospital administration worked. Grace barely registered it through her exhaustion. She heard confident footsteps enter the elevator, followed by a deep voice speaking into a phone. "Reschedule the board meeting for tomorrow morning. I don't care what time, just make it happen." The voice sent a strange jolt through Grace's nervous system, something familiar yet impossible. She forced her heavy eyelids open and turned her head. The man stood with his back to her, tall and broad-shouldered in an expensive charcoal suit, dark hair, perfectly cut. The phone pressed to his ear. Everything about him screamed power and money. "The merger documents need to be on my desk by 8 a.m., he continued, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Tell them if they can't meet the deadline, we'll find someone who can." Grace's vision swam. The elevator suddenly felt too hot, too small. Her chest tightened, and she couldn't get enough air into her lungs. She tried to take a step forward, to steady herself on the railing, but her legs gave out completely. The world tilted sideways. She heard the phone clatter to the floor, felt strong arms catch her before she hit the ground. The last thing she registered before darkness claimed her was a familiar scent, something that pulled her back 7 years in an instant. Grace. The voice was filled with shock, with recognition, with something that sounded almost like anguish. But that was impossible. He was gone. Had been gone for 7 years. This couldn't be happening then. Everything went black. When? She opened her eyes. Grace woke to bright lights and the smell of antiseptic. Hospital room. She was in a hospital room. But not just any room. This was one of the private suites on the top floor. It's the ones reserved for VIP patients and major donors. Confusion clouded her mind. What happened? Why was she here? Memory came back in fragments. The elevator. The exhaustion, falling, and that voice. That impossible voice. "You're awake." Grace's head snapped to the left, and her heart stopped. Benjamin Cross sat in the chair beside her bed. Leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped together, 7 years older than the last time she saw him, but unmistakable. The same strong jawline, the same intense dark eyes, the same way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. "No," Grace whispered, her voice cracking. "No, you're not real." "I'm real," he said quietly. And the pain in his voice was so raw, it made her chest ache. Grace tried to sit up, panic flooding her system. The heart monitor beside the bed began beeping faster. "Get out. Get away from me." Benjamin stood, but didn't move closer. He held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Grace, please. Let me explain." "Explain?" Her voice rose, years of buried anger surging to the surface. "You want to explain?" You disappeared 7 years ago, Benjamin. 7 years. No phone call, no letter, nothing. You've just vanished like I meant nothing to you. You meant everything to me, he said, and his voice broke on the last word. You still do. The truth begins to surface. Grace stared at him, her breathing ragged. She wanted to scream at him to throw him out, but she was too weak, too shocked. The four in her arm tugged as she tried to move away from him. Ah, the nurse said. You collapsed from severe exhaustion and dehydration. Benjamin continued, his professional mask slipping back into place. Your blood pressure was dangerously low. They want to keep you here for observation. I don't care what they want, Grace shot back. I want to know what you're doing here. In this hospital. In this room. In my life again. Benjamin ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered from when he was stressed. I'm the CEO of Metropolitan General. I took the position 6 months ago. The room spun again. Grace closed her eyes, trying to process this information. You've been here for 6 months? 6 months and you never said anything? Never tried to find me? I tried, he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Every single day since I started, I looked for you in the staff directory, but you weren't listed. You use your middle name here, don't you? Grace Holloway instead of Grace Elizabeth Holloway. She had started using just her first and last name after he left, wanting to distance herself from the person she was when they were together, the person who had been naive enough to believe in forever. That doesn't give you the right to be here now, Grace said, but her voice lacked conviction. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something more dangerous. Curiosity. Why did you leave, Benjamin? I deserve to know that much. He looked at her for a long moment, conflict clear in his expression. Then he pulled the chair closer to her bed and sat down again, close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 7 years ago. What? My family, he began, and stopped, took a breath, started again. My mother found out about us. About our plans to get married after you finished nursing school? She and my father gave me an ultimatum. Grace's hands clenched the hospital blanket. What kind of ultimatum? They said if I didn't leave you and marry Jennifer Walsh, the daughter of their business partner, they would destroy your father's company. Your dad had just started that small manufacturing business, remember? They had the power to crush it before it even got off the ground. They had lawyers, connections, ways to make sure your family lost everything. The words hit Grace like physical blows. Her father's business had been his dream, his way of providing for the family after being laid off from the factory. She remembered how stressed he had been those first few years, how every setback nearly broke him. You're lying, she whispered. But even as she said it, pieces started falling into place. The way Benjamin had suddenly become cold and distant. The way he had ended things so abruptly, so cruelly, as if trying to make her hate him. Why didn't you tell me? We could have fought them together, 'cause I knew you, Benjamin said, and now tears glistened in his eyes. I knew you would choose to fight, no matter the cost. You would sacrifice your family's future for us. I couldn't let you make that choice. The weight of 7 years' Grace felt tears streaming down her own face now. 7 years of anger, of questions, of wondering what she had done wrong, and it had all been a lie. A sacrifice she never asked for. So you just left, she said, her voice hollow. Made me think you never loved me. It killed me, Benjamin said, and his composure finally cracked completely. Every single day for 7 years, it killed me. I married Jennifer like they wanted. Played the perfect son, the perfect husband. But I never loved her. Never stopped loving you. Where is she now? Grace asked, not sure she wanted to know the answer. We divorced 2 years ago. She fell in love with someone else, someone who could actually love her back. I didn't fight it. I was relieved. Rachel burst through the door at that moment, her eyes wide with concern. She stopped short when she saw Benjamin. Grace, are you okay? Your heart rate spiked, and the nurses called me. Grace looked between her best friend and the man who had broken her heart 7 years ago. The man who claimed he had done it to save her family. The man who was now back in her life in the most impossible way. I don't know, Grace admitted, her voice small. Rachel, this is Benjamin Cross, the hospital's CEO, and my ex-fiancé from 7 years ago. Rachel's jaw dropped. She looked at Benjamin with undisguised hostility. The one who ghosted you? The one who made you cry for 6 months straight? Yes, Grace said quietly. Then he needs to leave, Rachel said firmly, moving to stand between them. Right now. But Grace held up a hand. Wait, I need to hear the rest. All of it. Benjamin stood slowly. Not tonight. You need rest. But Grace, I promise you, I will tell you everything. Every detail of what happened and why. And then you can decide if you ever want to see me again. He walked to the door, then paused and looked back. For what it's worth, seeing you collapse in that elevator was the most terrifying moment of my life. I thought I'd lost you again before I ever got the chance to explain, to apologize, to tell you that you were the only woman I ever truly loved. Then he was gone, leaving Grace and Rachel alone in the quiet room. Rachel immediately sat on the edge of the bed and took Grace's hand. Okay, you need to tell me everything. Start from the beginning. But Grace couldn't speak. She stared at the door Benjamin had just walked through, her mind reeling. 7 years of believing she wasn't enough, that she had been easily forgotten. And now everything she thought she knew was wrong. The question was, what was she going to do about it? The morning after Grace woke to sunlight streaming through the hospital window. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then it all came rushing back. The elevator, Benjamin. The impossible truth he had told her. Rachel was asleep in the chair beside her bed, still in her scrubs from the night shift. She had refused to leave, insisting on staying even when her shift ended at 7 a.m. Grace felt a rush of gratitude for her friend. A soft knock at the door made Rachel stir. Before Grace could respond, a nurse entered with a breakfast tray and a bouquet of white roses. Not just any roses. Exactly 12 of them, just like Benjamin used to bring her every month on their anniversary. These just arrived for you, the nurse said cheerfully, setting them on the bedside table. Someone must really care about you. Rachel was fully awake now, eyeing the flowers suspiciously. Let me guess. The CEO? Grace didn't answer. She reached for the small card tucked among the roses. Benjamin's handwriting, as familiar as her own heartbeat. I remember every detail, every moment, every promise. I'm sorry I broke them all. Please, let me make it right. Room 427 at 2 p.m., if you'll come. Rachel read over her shoulder and snorted. Absolutely not. You're not going anywhere near that man. Rachel, no. Grace, listen to me. Rachel stood and paced the small room. I was there, remember? I held you while you cried yourself to sleep every night for months. I watched you lose 15 pounds because you couldn't eat. I saw what his disappearance did to you. I know, Grace said quietly. But you didn't hear what he told me last night. His family threatened mine. My dad's business. Rachel stopped pacing. What are you talking about? Grace explained everything Benjamin had revealed. As she spoke, she watched her friend's expression shift from anger to confusion to something like reluctant understanding. That doesn't excuse how he handled it, Rachel said finally. He should have told you the truth. Let you make the choice together. I agree, Grace admitted. But Rachel, if he had told me, what would I have done? You know me. I would have told him we'd fight it together. And my dad's business might have failed before it even started. Rachel sat back down, her expression troubled. So what are you going to do? Before Grace could answer, another knock interrupted them. This time, a woman entered. She was in her early 60s, impeccably dressed in a cream designer suit, with perfectly styled silver hair and cold blue eyes. Everything about her screamed old money and power. Grace Holloway, the woman said, not as a question, but as a statement. I'm Patricia Cross, Benjamin's mother. The threat Grace felt her blood run cold. Rachel immediately moved closer, protective instinct kicking in. How did you get in here? Rachel demanded. This is a private room. Tricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm on the hospital board of directors. I can go wherever I please. She turned her attention back to Grace. We need to talk. Alone. Anything you have to say? You can say in front of Rachel, Grace said. Finding her voice despite her racing heart, Patricia's smile disappeared. Very well. I'll be direct. I know my son spoke with you last night. I can only imagine what sentimental nonsense he filled your head with. He told me the truth, Grace said, lifting her chin, about what you and his father did 7 years ago. Did he tell you we saved your family? Patricia countered. That your father's little business would have crumbled within months without our intervention. Benjamin leaving you was the best thing that could have happened to everyone involved. Rachel stepped forward. You need to leave now. Patricia ignored her. I came here to make you an offer, Miss Holloway. A generous one. She opened her designer purse and pulled out an envelope, placing it on the bedside table. Inside is a check for $2 million, tax-free. All you have to do is resign from this hospital and leave the city. Today, Grace stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You're trying to buy me off. I'm offering you a fresh start, Patricia corrected. $2 million is more money than you'd make in 10 years as a nurse. You could go anywhere, do anything. All I ask is that you stay away from my son, no, Grace said immediately. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I said no. Grace's voice grew stronger. You can't buy me, and you have no right to control Benjamin's life anymore. I have every right, Patricia snapped, her composure cracking. Do you have any idea who we are? The Cross family built this city. We have connections you couldn't even imagine. One phone call from me, and you'll never work in healthcare again. Not in this state, not anywhere. Rachel grabbed her phone. That's it. I'm calling security. Wait, Grace said, surprising both women. She looked directly at Patricia. I want to understand something. Why do you hate the idea of Benjamin being with me so much? What did I ever do to you? Patricia laughed bitterly. You exist. That's enough. Benjamin is meant for greatness, for someone of his own social standing. Someone who can help advance the family name, not drag it down. You mean someone you can control? Grace said quietly. Someone who will let you run their life the way you've been running Benjamin's. The accuracy of the statement made Patricia's face flush with anger. You think you know my son? You had a little romance 7 years ago, when he was young and stupid. You don't know the man he's become. Maybe not, Grace admitted. But I know the man he was. The man who was kind and funny and made me feel like I mattered. And I don't think that person just disappeared. That person never existed, Patricia said coldly. He was playing a role, slumming it with someone beneath his station. He's forgotten all about you. Then why are you here? Grace challenged. If he's forgotten me, if I mean nothing to him, why did you come all the way to this hospital room to threaten me? Patricia's jaw tightened. She had no answer for that. You're scared, Grace continued, realization dawning. You're scared because Benjamin chose me over your arranged marriage. Over everything you've planned for him. You're losing control, and that terrifies you. This conversation is over, Patricia said sharply. She picked up the envelope and threw it onto Grace's lap. Take the money and go, or refuse, and I'll make sure you regret it. You have until tonight to decide. She turned and swept out of the room, leaving a stunned silence behind her. Rachel was the first to speak. Oh my God, Grace, that woman is terrifying. Grace picked up the envelope with trembling hands. $2 million. Enough to change her entire life. Enough to pay off her student loans, help her dad expand his business, give her little brother, David, money for graduate school. All she had to do was walk away from Benjamin. Again, room 427 at 2 p.m. Grace stood outside room 427. She had discharged herself against medical advice, much to the doctor's protests. Rachel had tried to convince her to rest at least one more day. But Grace needed answers more than she needed rest. She had left the envelope with Patricia's check on the hospital bed. Unopened, Grace took a deep breath and knocked. Come in, Benjamin's voice called. She opened the door to find not a patient room, but a private office. Benjamin's office, she realized. Large windows overlooked the city. Expensive furniture. Diplomas and awards on the walls. This was the life he had built in the 7 years without her. Benjamin stood from behind his desk, his expression a mixture of hope and fear. You came. Your mother visited me this morning, Grace said, not bothering with pleasantries. His face went pale. What did she say? She offered me $2 million to leave town and never see you again. Benjamin closed his eyes, his hands clenching into fists. I'm going to kill her. She threatened to destroy my career if I refused. She can't do that, Benjamin said immediately. I won't let her. Can you stop her? Grace challenged. Can you really stand up to your family, Benjamin? Because 7 years ago, you couldn't. The words hung in the air between them. Benjamin walked around the desk until he was standing a few feet away from her. You're right, he said quietly. 7 years ago, I was a coward. I let them control me, manipulate me. I thought I was protecting you, but really I was just taking the easy way out, not fighting for what I wanted. And now? Grace asked, her heart pounding. Now I'm done being controlled, Benjamin said firmly. This morning I had a conversation with my parents. I told them I was stepping down from the family business entirely, cutting all financial ties. I'm keeping this position as CEO because I earned it through my own qualifications, but everything else? The trust fund, the family company stock, the estate inheritance. I'm giving it all up. Grace's eyes widened. Benjamin, you can't just... I already did, he interrupted. I signed the papers an hour ago. I'm done letting them use money and status as weapons against the people I love. They'll disown you, Grace whispered. Good, he said, and there was a fierce determination in his eyes she had never seen before. I should have done this 7 years ago. I should have fought for you then. I'm fighting for you now. Grace felt tears welling up. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if my heart can survive being broken by you twice. Benjamin took a step closer. Then I'll spend every day proving to you that I'm worth the risk. I'll be patient. I'll wait as long as it takes. But Grace, I need you to know something. What? 7 years ago, when I left you, I didn't just lose my future wife. I lost my best friend, the person who made me want to be better. The only person who ever saw the real me, not just the cross-family heir. His voice broke. I've been half-alive without you. Grace wiped her tears away angrily. That's not fair. You can't just say things like that and expect everything to be okay. I know, he agreed. I know I hurt you. I know I made the worst mistake of my life. But I'm asking for a chance to make it right. Not to go back to how things were, but to start fresh. To build something new, something honest. The unexpected alibi for Grace could respond. Benjamin's phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. It's the front desk. I need to take this. He answered, listened for a moment, then his expression changed to shock. Send him up immediately. Who is it? Grace asked. Your father. Grace's heart stopped. What? Why is my dad here? A minute later, Thomas Holloway burst into the office. He was a stocky man in his 60s, with graying hair and work-worn hands. His face was flushed with anger. You, he said, pointing at Benjamin. You're the boy who broke my daughter's heart, Dad, Grace exclaimed. How did you even know I was here? Rachel called me, Thomas said, not taking his eyes off Benjamin. Told me everything. About you collapsing, about him showing up again, about his mother's threats. Benjamin stood his ground. Mr. Holloway, I understand you're angry. You understand nothing, Thomas interrupted. Do you have any idea what you did to her? She was a shell of herself for over a year after you left. Stopped eating, stopped sleeping. I watched my little girl break, and I couldn't do anything to fix it. Grace felt tears streaming down her face again. She had never known her father understood how deeply Benjamin's departure had hurt her. I'm sorry, Benjamin said, and his voice was thick with emotion. Sir, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know why I left. Oh, I know why, Thomas said bitterly. Your mother was kind enough to enlighten me this morning. Showed up at my factory with her lawyers, trying to buy my silence too. Wanted me to convince Grace to take her blood money and disappear. Grace gasped. She went to your business? Thomas nodded, his anger shifting to something gentler as he looked at his daughter. She told me everything. About the threats 7 years ago? About the debts she claims they covered? You want to know what I told her? What? Benjamin asked. I told her to go to hell, Thomas said simply. I told her that my daughter's happiness is worth more than any amount of money, that I would have lost the business 1,000 times over rather than have her sacrifice Grace's future. Grace walked to her father and hugged him tightly. He held her close, the way he had when she was a little girl. "Gracie," he said softly, using his childhood nickname for her. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago." She pulled back to look at him. "What is it?" Thomas took a deep breath. "The year Benjamin left, my business was struggling bad. I had debts I couldn't pay, and I was about to lose everything. Then suddenly, mysteriously, all those debts disappeared. The bank said an anonymous benefactor had paid them off. I never knew who." He turned to Benjamin. "It was your family, wasn't it? That was the price of you leaving Grace." Benjamin nodded. "I made sure your business was protected. It was the only condition I demanded in exchange for doing what they wanted." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked both Grace and Benjamin. He walked over and extended his hand to Benjamin. "Thank you," he said gruffly, "for protecting my family, even at the cost of your own happiness. That took courage, even if it was misguided." Benjamin shook his hand, looking stunned. "I should have told Grace the truth from the beginning." "Yes, he should have," Thomas agreed. "But you were young and scared. I understand that now." He looked at his daughter. "Grace, honey, I can't tell you what to do. You're a grown woman who makes her own choices. But I want you to know something." "What, Dad?" "This man gave up his future to protect ours," Thomas said. "That's not nothing. And if he's willing to give up his family's money and power now to be with you again, that tells me he's learned from his mistakes." He paused. "But the question is, can you forgive him? Can you trust him again?" Grace looked at Benjamin, really looked at him. She saw the love in his eyes, the regret, the hope. She saw the man who had held her while she cried over losing her first patient. The man who had helped her study for finals, making stupid jokes to keep her awake. The man who had promised her forever, then disappeared. But she also saw something new. Strength, determination. A man willing to fight for what he wanted instead of bowing to pressure. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "I want to believe you, Benjamin. I want to trust that this time will be different. But I'm scared." "I know," he said softly. "I'm scared too. Scared I've lost you forever. Scared I don't deserve a second chance. But Grace, I'm asking anyway. Not for us to pick up where we left off, but for a chance to start over. To date you properly, earn your trust back. Prove that I'm not the same man who ran away." Thomas cleared his throat. "I'm going to step outside and give you some privacy. Grace, whatever you decide, I support you. But don't make the decision based on protecting me or your brother. Make it based on what your heart wants." Closing the door quietly behind him, Grace and Benjamin stood in the silent office. 7 years of pain and love and loss between them. "I need time," Grace said finally. "I need time to process everything, to figure out if I can do this again." "Take all the time you need," Benjamin said immediately. "I'll wait. A week, a month, a year. However long it takes. Your mother won't give up," Grace warned. "She'll keep trying to push me away." "Let her try," Benjamin said, and there was steel in his voice. "I meant what I said. I'm done letting my family control my life. If she wants a war, she'll get one. But she won't win. Not this time." Grace felt something shift inside her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of hope. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, we can try. Slowly, one day at a time." The smile that broke across Benjamin's face was like the sun coming out after a storm. "One day at a time," he agreed. "That's all I'm asking for." He took a step toward her, then hesitated. "Can I hug you?" Grace considered for a moment, then nodded. Benjamin closed the distance and wrapped his arms around her gently, like she was something precious and fragile. She let herself lean into him, let herself remember how safe she used to feel in his embrace. It wasn't perfect. There were still questions to answer, trust to rebuild, wounds to heal. But it was a start, and sometimes a start was enough. The declaration 1 week after Grace agreed to give Benjamin a second chance. The war with his family escalated. Grace was in the middle of her shift when Rachel rushed up to her, phone in hand and panic on her face. "Grace, you need to see this." "Now." Rachel thrust the phone at her. On the screen was a local news website with a headline that made Grace's blood run cold. Hospital CEO Benjamin Cross. Engaged to healthcare heiress Jennifer Walsh. Reunion after divorce shocks elite circles. Below the headline was a photo that looked recent. Benjamin and Jennifer at some charity gala, standing close together, her hand on his arm. They looked like the perfect power couple. "This can't be real," Grace whispered, but her hands were shaking. "He wouldn't. Not again." "Call him," Rachel urged. "Right now. Get his side of the story before you jump to conclusions." But before Grace could dial, her phone rang. Benjamin's name flashed on the screen. "Grace, don't believe what you see online," he said immediately, his voice urgent. "It's all lies. My mother planted that story. Jennifer and I aren't together. We barely spoke at that gala, which was 3 months ago. They're using old photos and making up quotes." "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Grace asked, and she hated how her voice shook. "How do I know this isn't happening all over again? Because I'm about to do something I should have done 7 years ago," Benjamin said. "Turn on Channel 5 News, right now." Grace looked at Rachel, who quickly pulled up the live news feed on her phone. They watched as Benjamin appeared on screen, standing at a podium outside Metropolitan General Hospital. Reporters crowded around him, cameras flashing. "I've called this press conference," Benjamin began, his voice steady and clear, "to address the false reports circulating about my personal life. I am not engaged to Jennifer Walsh. We divorced 2 years ago and have no plans for reconciliation." A reporter shouted a question. "Then who are you involved with, Mr. Cross?" Benjamin looked directly into the camera. "I'm in love with Grace Holloway. She's a nurse here at Metropolitan General, and she's the bravest, kindest, most incredible woman I've ever met. 7 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life by letting my family pressure me into leaving her. I'm not making that mistake again." Grace's phone slipped from her nerveless fingers.
"Oh."
Rachel caught it, both of them staring at the screen in shock. "My family has spent the last week trying to sabotage our relationship," Benjamin continued. "They've threatened Miss Holloway, offered her bribes to leave, and now they've planted false stories in the media. I'm here to say publicly that I choose Grace. I choose her over my family's approval, over their money, over everything. And to Grace, if you're watching this, I love you. I never stopped loving you." The press exploded with questions, but Benjamin simply turned and walked back into the hospital, leaving chaos in his wake. Grace stood frozen in the middle of the hospital corridor, tears streaming down her face. Around her, staff members were pulling up the video on their phones, whispering excitedly. Everyone was staring at her. "He really did it," Rachel breathed. "He just chose you in front of the entire city." Grace's phone rang again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. "Miss Holloway," a cold female voice said when she answered. "This is Patricia Cross. My son has just made a spectacle of himself on national television. I hope you're happy." "I didn't ask him to do that," Grace said, finding her voice. "No." "But you encouraged his delusions," Patricia snapped. "Let me be clear. If you continue this relationship with Benjamin, I will destroy you, not just your career. Your entire family, your father's business will collapse. Your brother's college funding will disappear. Everything you love will turn to ash." Grace felt ice flood her veins. "You can't do that." "I absolutely can," Patricia said smoothly. "I have lawyers who specialize in finding legal loopholes. Accountants who can make businesses fail without leaving fingerprints. I've spent 40 years building my family's empire, and I will not let some common nurse tear it down." "Benjamin won't let you hurt me," Grace said, but she heard the uncertainty in her own voice. "Benjamin is no longer in control of the family assets," Patricia reminded her. "He gave that up when he chose you. He has no power to stop me. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to break up with him. You're going to tell him you can't handle the pressure, that it's too much. And then you're going to leave this hospital and this city. And if I don't, then by this time next week, your father will be bankrupt and your brother will be dropping out of college. Is your romance worth destroying their lives?" The line went dead. Grace stood there, phone pressed to her ear, the world crumbling around her. This was 7 years ago all over again. The same threats, The same impossible choice. Only this time, Benjamin had chosen her publicly. He had burned bridges with his family for her. And Patricia was going to punish everyone Grace loved because of it. Grace. Rachel's voice seemed to come from far away. What's wrong? You look like you're going to pass out again. I have to go, Grace said numbly. I need to talk to my dad. She left the hospital in a daze, barely registering the curious looks from her coworkers. She drove to her father's factory on autopilot, her mind racing with terrible possibilities. The family meeting Thomas Holloway was in his office when Grace arrived. Reviewing inventory sheets? He looked up with a smile when she entered, but it faded when he saw her expression. What happened? Grace told him everything. The press conference, Patricia's threats. The impossible choice she was being forced to make again. Thomas listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. When she finished, he sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. Dad, I can't let her destroy everything you've built, Grace said, her voice breaking. I can't be the reason you and David lose everything. Stop, Thomas said firmly. Just stop right there. He stood and walked around the desk to face her. Grace Elizabeth Holloway, I am going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. Are you listening? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. That woman has no power over us unless we give it to her, Thomas said. Yes, she has money and lawyers. Yes, she might be able to cause us problems, but she cannot destroy us unless we let her.
Fact.
7 years ago, I didn't know what was happening, he continued. I didn't know you were sacrificing your happiness to protect me.
If I had known, I would have told you to choose love. I would have told you that businesses can be rebuilt, but lost time with the person you love can never be recovered. Your business is your dream, Grace protested. You're my daughter, Thomas said simply. You are more important than any business, any amount of money. If Patricia Cross wants to come after us, let her. We'll fight. We'll survive. But I will not let you sacrifice your future again. What if we can't survive it? Grace whispered. What if she takes everything? Thomas pulled her into a hug. Then we'll start over. We'll rebuild. We'll do it together with our integrity intact. You'll do it with the man you love by your side. The office door burst open, and David Holloway rushed in. At 23, he was tall and lanky, with the same eyes as his sister. Grace, I just saw the news. Benjamin Cross publicly declared his love for you. That's so romantic. David read the room, Thomas said dryly. Oh, is something wrong? David looked between them, his excitement fading. Grace explained the situation again. To her surprise, David's reaction was immediate anger. It's that which is threatening our family because you're dating her son, he said incredulously. Who does she think she is? She thinks she's someone with the power to ruin us, Grace said tiredly. Then we don't let her, David said, as if it were simple. Grace, you helped pay for my first 2 years of college. You worked double shifts and sent me money when Dad's business was struggling. You sacrificed so much for this family. It's our turn to fight for you. You don't understand what you're saying, Grace protested. Your scholarship will still be there, David interrupted. And if it's not, I'll take out loans like everyone else. Grace, you deserve to be happy. We all do. We don't negotiate with terrorists, even if they wear designer suits. Despite everything, Grace felt herself smile. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise, David said with a grin. You've just never noticed because you were too busy taking care of everyone else. Thomas nodded. He's right, honey. It's time we took care of you for a change. Grace felt something crack open in her chest. For 7 years, she had carried the weight of protecting her family alone. She had made decisions based on fear, on the need to keep everyone safe. But maybe she didn't have to do that anymore. Maybe it was okay to let them stand with her, to fight together. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, we fight. The confrontation that evening, Grace returned to the hospital to find Benjamin waiting in the parking lot. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened and hair disheveled, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. I was worried when you didn't answer my calls, he said, walking toward her. After the press conference, I thought maybe you were angry that I put you in the spotlight. I'm not angry, Grace said. I'm terrified. Your mother called me. She threatened my family again. Worse than before. Benjamin's expression darkened. What did she say? Grace told him everything. As she spoke, she watched his face transform from concern to fury. "That's it," he said when she finished. "This ends now, tonight. Benjamin, what are you going to do?" "What I should have done 7 years ago," he said grimly. "Stand up to them." Really stand up to them. He took out his phone and made a call. "Mother, Father, I'm coming to the house. We're having this out once and for all." Grace grabbed his arm. "I'm coming with you, Grace. You don't have to." "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "This is my fight too. I'm done letting other people make decisions about my life. We face them together." Benjamin looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Together. They drove to the Cross family estate in tense silence. It was a massive property in the most exclusive part of the city, all stone and ivy and old money. Grace had only been here once before, 7 years ago. For a disastrous dinner where Patricia had made it clear Grace wasn't good enough for her son. Now she walked through the front door with her head held high, Benjamin's hand warm and solid in hers. Patricia and Robert Cross were waiting in the formal living room. Robert was a stern man in his late 60s, with silver hair and Benjamin's eyes. Patricia stood beside him, her expression icy. "This is inappropriate," Patricia said immediately, looking at Grace. "This is a family meeting. She shouldn't be here." "She's family," Benjamin said flatly. "Or she will be if she'll have me. Either way, she stays." "Benjamin, be reasonable," Robert began in a measured tone. "We understand you have feelings for this woman, but marriage is about more than emotion. It's about building dynasties, securing futures." "I don't want a dynasty," Benjamin said. "I want a life. With Grace, and you'll have neither," Patricia snapped. "Because I meant what I said to her. If you continue this relationship, I will systematically dismantle everything her family has built." "No, you won't," Benjamin said calmly. Patricia smiled coldly. "And who's going to stop me?" "You. You have no access to the family resources anymore." "I don't need them," Benjamin said, "because I have something better. Evidence." He pulled out his phone and opened a file. "For the last week, ever since you started threatening Grace, I've had a team of lawyers investigating our family's business practices. The results are fascinating." Robert's face went pale. "Benjamin, what have you done?" "I found proof of everything," Benjamin continued, his voice hard. "Tax evasion through shell corporations. Bribes paid to city officials. Illegal manipulation of stock prices. Would you like me to continue?" Patricia's composure finally cracked. "You're bluffing." "Try me," Benjamin challenged. "I have copies of everything, stored with 3 different law firms with instructions to release them to the authorities if anything happens to Grace or her family. If her father's business suddenly fails, if her brother loses his scholarship, if Grace has any accidents at work, all of this goes public. You would destroy your own family?" Robert asked, looking genuinely shocked.
Us.
"You destroyed us first," Benjamin said. And for the first time, Grace heard real pain in his voice. "When you threatened an innocent woman to control me. When you made me choose between love and loyalty. When you taught me that family was about power and money instead of love and support." He turned to Grace, his expression softening. "Grace's family showed me what real family looks like this week. Her father was willing to lose everything rather than see her unhappy. Her brother offered to sacrifice his education for her happiness. That's family. Not whatever this is." Patricia sank into a chair, her face ashen. Robert stood rigidly, his jaw clenched. "So here's what's going to happen," Benjamin continued, his tone brooking no argument. "You're going to leave Grace and her family alone, completely. No threats, no interference, no clever legal maneuvers. In exchange, I keep your secrets. I don't destroy the family name, and if we refuse," Patricia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then I go to the authorities tomorrow morning," Benjamin said simply, "and we all face the consequences together." Silence filled the room. Grace could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She squeezed Benjamin's hand, silently letting him know she was with him. Finally, Robert spoke. "You've changed, Benjamin. 7 years ago, you would never have had the courage to do this." 7 years ago, I didn't understand what really mattered," Benjamin said. Losing Grace taught me that. Patricia looked at Grace with undisguised hatred. You've poisoned my son against his own family. No, Grace said, finding her voice. I loved him. That's all I've ever done. You're the ones who turned love into a weapon. What? Patricia stood abruptly. Get out of my house. Both of you. Gladly, Benjamin said. He looked at his father one last time. I hope someday you'll understand why I had to do this. But if you don't, I can live with that. Because I'm not living for your approval anymore. They turned and walked out of the mansion together. As soon as they reached the car, Grace felt her legs give out. Benjamin caught her, holding her steady. You did it, she whispered. You really stood up to them. We did it, he corrected. Together. Grace looked up at him, this man who had broken her heart and spent 7 years trying to protect her in the wrong way. This man who had finally learned to fight for what he wanted instead of running from it. I love you, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I'm still scared. I'm still hurt from before. But I love you, Benjamin. I think I never stopped. Benjamin's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. I've loved you for 7 years, even when I couldn't be with you. And I promise you, Grace, I will spend the rest of my life proving that you can trust me, that I will always choose you. I know, she said, and realized she meant it. I see it now. In everything you did tonight, in how you fought for us. He cupped her face gently. Can I kiss you? Yes, she whispered. The kiss was soft and sweet, and full of promise. It tasted like second chances and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, both were crying. What happens now? Grace asked. Now we start over, Benjamin said. We date properly. I court you the way I should have 7 years ago. We build something new together, something honest and real. What about your family? They'll come around eventually, he said. Or they won't. Either way, I have you. That's all that matters.